Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our podcast. I am Elias Haddad, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Dave Conley. What's up, my man?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Eli. So great to see you.
Likewise, man. It's a muggy day here in Lexington, Kentucky, and like 48 degrees. So I'm very jealous that I'm not in. Are you in Costa Rica today?
I am in Costa Rica. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Been down here for a few days, last Thursday. So 6 days ago.
Yeah. How's that going?
Have you ever been to Costa Rica?
Never.
Me either. I've never been to Costa Rica. It feels like among my friends that I feel like I'm like the last person to go.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Been on an enclosed resort here for the last several days, and took yesterday completely off. Thinking about what to do today, but want to sort of break out of the bubble and actually see some of the actual country, right? Because we hear so many good things about the country, and so I think it's time to be doing that rather than just kind of sticking in a resort bubble where it could be anywhere, right? It could be in Southern California.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
what part
but
of
meeting great people.
What part of Costa Rica in?
Northwest corner, yeah, it just northwest corner, outside of, flew into Liberia, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And it's pretty close to the border actually here with
really?
Honduras.
Yeah.
Here in Central America. Yeah.
That's
really
awesome.
amazing time of the year. It's the dry season right now. It's a little windy, but zero complaints. Like zero complaints. It's stunning to be out of the country, feeling a little bit more normal with things, and just meeting some great people, learning some cool stuff. It's all green lights.
Yeah, it's kind of it's interesting seeing like just like things opening up in general, and like just getting out and doing things. And even I got stuck in traffic for the first time in like months, and I was like, this is terrible, everybody go back home. It's like, this is the worst. And it, like, school just started, and that's the main traffic driver for us is like the elementary. I think they phased it in like high school, then middle, then elementary. I'm not really sure. I wasn't paying attention too much on how they did it, but it was just like one day every main artery of my town was clogged up. And it's so funny. 2 days ago, I was heading out to the farm, and I forgot my hammock, and I was like, I keep forgetting my hammock, and I'm like, damn it, this time I'm going to take my hammock, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to read a book and relax. So I turn around and I get stuck in traffic. Like somehow some things happened that caused me to get traffic. So it takes me, what usually takes me 3 minutes to get to my house, took me about 11 minutes. I run in there, grab my hammock, get in the car, and I'm like, all right, let me go around where I saw the traffic. I know all the little shortcuts.
Yeah.
I get on this main road. That road's blocked off because of an accident. So I bust a Yui. It literally, my usual drive to my farm is like, in worst traffic that I've experienced, was 28 minutes. It took me an hour and 22 minutes in my car to see how long it took me to get back and forth. So then I get there and I'm like, all right, damn it, this is so stressful. I'm so glad I get to relax. I'm going to bust out my hammock and I'm going to relax, chill out for a little bit. So I grab my hammock bag and I look at it and I'm like, shit, this is the rain catcher thing, fly thing for the hammock. The hammock's not even in here. And I'm like, I just want to fucking relax. Like, I can't even get this shit right. And then, I rolled myself a couple of J's too. And I'm like, well, I'll just smoke a J. And I'm like, shit, I forgot my lighter. So I'm sitting there like sitting on top of this mountain, like, this is the worst experience. And then actually what ended up happening was I just sat there quietly and like meditated for 20 minutes, like just turned my phone off. I put my phone in my car. I sat on a big rock and I just sat there like this at first, like just like, and then I like released my hands, put them on my knees, and like just started to breathe. Just breathing. And then it just like, it helped me relax. I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a forest. I have no reason to be pissed off, know? And,
exactly. And you get to choose.
Yeah, exactly. I got to choose my attitude, even though I spent like an hour and I kicked a tree and shit. And it was just like, just one of those moments. But you were telling me before that you're learning a lot of new stuff. I'd like to. I'm curious. I want to know what's in what you're learning and what you're doing there in Costa Rica. What's
Well, what's sitting with me really is sort of like the bigger picture. And I think it's a little bit of the part of the American story for me, which is just taking time to learn and think and get bored. Like, we don't value boredom, and yet it's an intrinsic part of our existence. We spend all of this time distracting ourselves with our phones or with Netflix or with food or drink, or we spend all of this time filling every available moment, and then we go to bed and we wonder why we don't sleep well, and then we wake up and we do it all over again, and we just grind and grind and grind and grind, and we laud the people who grind it out, right?
Yeah.
That just go and go, and we celebrate them. And I've been taking the last 10 days almost in a really heavy duty learning environment, learning about business, learning about my business in workshops, and really stepping back. And I'm like, okay, what's working for me? What's not working for me? And how might I choose those things? And if I keep on doing what I'm doing now, am I going to realize the vision that I really want to bring to the world? And the answer is no, I'm not. I'm spinning and just hoping for the best, and hope is just not going to work out. So what are the positive changes that I can do? Even things that I would have thought, no, I would never do that. It's like, well, why? What's that limiting belief? So case in point, I've been grinding on this book for 2.5 years, and I have like the 5th draft of it done. And there's still a lot of direction, a lot of time that I need to be putting into it. And it's a full-time gig, and it's a full-time job, and I appreciate it. And I love the process of writing. Yet I'm stepping back as to what's stopping me from just banging it out. Like, what's stopping me from just doing it? And part of this is when you create something and it's so precious to you and it's so personal, putting it out there and being subject to criticism, being subject to judgment, being subject to a lot of negative feelings on it, is stopping me from being, the brave Dave that I am, of just saying, like, put this stuff out there and see what the hell happens, right? You're only going to learn from putting it out there. If I keep it like this precious thing to myself, it's never going to get there. Most authors, beginning authors, don't publish. They just don't do it, right? And it's like, well, what can I do to change that? Am I going to be doing this work? Well, I don't have to, right? I can bring in a writer. I have it. I have all the bones down. I have all of the writing down. I have, everything that I want to say down. It needs work. So a writer to sort of true it up, get it to a place where I want, to ghost write it in a way. And for me, it felt like, well, is that authentic? Is it, well, wait a minute, let's look at the bigger goal here, right? The bigger goal is to get this message out there. And if I'm sitting on it, what are the steps that I can do and actually to make this a reality? Well, throw some money at it, hire somebody, bring people in, get a coach around it, get, people around me that have helped me in the past. I brought it so far. And sometimes to get at that last 5 yards over the goal, you just need a push. And I'm not going to, time is not my friend here. It's like, let's go get this. Let's go do this. And so that allowed me just the times, like, well, to sit back, think about my business. And then the other big learning for me was I spend a lot of time selling my time as a speaker, as a coach, particularly in the midlife world or in the health and wellness world, but in particularly midlife. I'm doing this one-on-one individual stuff. And I think you can probably say from being an entrepreneur that if you're selling your time, that is not a good investment, right? I just have a risky job.
It's not a business. It's not a business. The difference between a job and a business is you can sell your business.
Yes, exactly.
That is a defining thing. And I mean, what I'm doing, like my JV partnerships that I'm doing and how I present it to the people that I'm partnering with is, look, you own a brokerage. Here's my experience. I had an opportunity to sell this business and I was like, it was pennies on the dollar. And I was like, here's exit strategy. So yeah, go ahead.
That's exactly it. It's like, okay, so now it's the exciting part. I'm such, inside me is this huge entrepreneur. Even though I worked for private industry, our industry was very entrepreneurial. And that was when I was most happy in my world. When I left that world, I started 7 or 8 companies. Like I really got into entrepreneurship and then helping other people start companies and investing in early stage startups. This was exciting to me. This grinding it out, the artistry of writing a book. Well, there's a reason why I'm not doing it. It's because I'm just not naturally geared to it. I can say I'm a writer and an author I want because I enjoy doing it, but just because you enjoy something doesn't make it your profession, doesn't make it the difference that you're trying to make. It's the message that's important to me, to get it out there to do more things. So let's start building a business rather than have this big ass risky job.
Yeah.
So that excites me. Those were like big things to really shift. Now, I'm not exactly sure, and maybe we could talk a little bit about this, is given my field, what are the products and services that people at midlife really, really want? Like what are the main pain points and how might we serve those at scale?
Yeah.
And then dropping into Costa Rica, it's all been about relationships and leaning into relationships also not necessarily with romantic partners, but that has been the focus, but all sorts of relationships and just powerful tools in listening and being able to communicate. It comes back to, man, you're going to spend most of your time talking, right? If you're going to spend most of your time talking, you might as well hone that skill. And so like, how are you listening? How are you getting on somebody's map? If you're assuming that you can mind read, and if you're assuming that you know exactly how somebody's thinking, like, damn, no, that's just going to lead. And then how are you reacting? Right. And so leaning into that learning and having those two things come together, and then the value of just sitting with it and processing it. And I know that in my world, I have often gotten addicted to the learning. Let's do the next podcast. Let's do the next, read the next book, go to the next workshop, go, and you get into this circle
When does
jerk.
it stop? When you stop being the learner and being the implementer?
Yes, exactly. And you just get addicted to this self-help. It's like, I'm getting better. No, you're not. You're just learning. It's like going to the grocery store, coming back with bags full of groceries and leaving them on the ground. It's like, no, man, you got to put that stuff away in the fridge and the pantry. You got to put that stuff out, and then you start cooking a meal, right? Like if you just leave it on the ground and you're like, I'm going to eat out again. Well, no, don't keep on going and eating out. It's like, this is about bringing home the groceries, putting them away, making the meal, right? Now I'm in the putting away stage of learning about relationships, learning about my business. And now it's like, okay, what are the very next steps I'm going to take for myself, for others, and for my vocation that's going to resonate with the stuff that I want to bring to the world? And that's incredibly powerful. And you've got to just sit and be with it and get bored. Like, like if I'm distracting myself with my computer or my phone or with a stiff drink or a good meal, great. Those are all fine. And to make space, you'll remember this from a big nude talk I gave to you and 40 of our friends. To make space for something new is sacred. And that sacred time makes way for all of the new that you want in your world. If you're junking it up, you're not going to be making space for something new. So, this has been great.
Yeah. So for anybody that wants to know about the nudes thing with Dave and I, in a group of 40 people or around 50 people, were at a journey, like ashram in the middle of Mexico. And there was a time, it was time for integration, it's time for sharing. And Dave stepped up there and dropped trowel, and I'm talking all of it. And I actually knew, and I told everybody, I was like, Dave's about to go naked right now, because you were about to have your surgery to remove all the excess skin that you had. And this was like, you're like, this is the last time you get to see this, y'all. Check it out. And it was a big moment, and your lip didn't quiver. You freaking did it, dude. You owned it. So Damn,
Yeah.
man, that was awesome. It was one of the most one of the most profound things that we experienced as a group there. So good for you for doing it. I, when it comes to like, what are you thinking on how you're going to scale your business? Like, like when you started talking about it, something that I've seen that's kind of coming back, and it kind of comes back to churches and religions are like men's groups, for example,
Yeah.
or
Right.
just like small group meetings. And then, so how are you thinking you're going to scale it, and how are you going to reach as many people as you possibly can?
Well, first I'm thinking about what are the pain points at midlife, right? Like,
Mhm.
what are the experiences? And let's see if any of these resonate with you. A big one that comes up is that you've spent so much time identifying with your job, right?
Mhm.
With the work that you do because you get rewarded for it, right?
Yeah.
And that job starts to change if you're in, say, a corporate space, or working for other people. You might be looking at your job and like there's no more promotions to be had, not unless somebody dies, or or if you change jobs completely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you might be, I certainly folks that I have in my life that are in jobs um, that are very specialized, like they're lawyers or they're doctors or they're accountants, like they have very, anything that needs a license around it, right?
Mhm.
They truly might be looking at it as like, wow, is this what I expected? Like, is this my space in the world? Do I really want to make the world safe for divorce? Like, or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like they're really questioning whether or not they want to be a radiologist for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Um, or maybe they're in a job that requires swinging a hammer, or something quite physical, and their body starts changing, right?
Mhm.
It's like, well, can I keep on doing this, right? Like, is this like what's the long term on this? um
I got a great example of that. I have a good friend
yeah,
of
tell
mine
me.
that he picked up doing hardwood floors. We were both flippers, and he was like,
Yeah.
nobody's doing a good job in hardwood floors. So he did it and loved it. Been doing it for 10 years. And so now I'm helping him identify investment properties. And he's finally realizing, the guy, let me tell you, when I've known him since basically right after college. He's my height, 5'9", maybe 5'10". Extremely gifted athlete. Like I mean, he was a landscaper at first. I've literally seen him pick up trees with the dropping trees in for landscaping that are just like 250 pounds, just straight up.
Wow.
And so he basically thought he's physically able to do it. And now he's 43, 44, I think. I'm 41. And he's like, I can't do this forever. I was like, I told you that 10 years ago when you started this business, is like, it's not a good
Right.
idea, but sorry. But he's kind
That's
of
totally it.
experiencing that right now. And now I'm helping him identify rental properties. So it's like, here's some passive income that if we can get you to 12 properties, you'll make 100 grand a year. And he's doing them all cash. And he's not an idiot. He graduated with I think an MBA in finance, and he did
Right.
hardwood floors. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
but yeah, I'm seeing that experience firsthand right now because I'm in that grades group. So
That's exactly it, right? Like something changes about the thing that you identify most, right?
yeah.
uh in the family category, parents get older, kids get older, right? Parents get older and more dependent, kids get older and more independent. And you might also be looking at your primary relationship as, well, this was perfect for that time of my life. So you either have to re-up, evolve your relationship, maybe even change your relationship. And that can come with a lot of turmoil, right? There's a lot of divorces that happen in midlife. And then often you spend very little time on yourself, and your body, radically starts changing at midlife. Your hormones go sideways. Almost everyone says they finally, after a year of fighting it, they finally felt like their parents when they needed reading glasses, right?
I'm doing it
That
right now.
was right. And you're fighting it, right? You're
Squinting.
like,
Even right now, I catch myself like,
ah.
damn it.
So there's this world of self-care and body, like for me, I mean, one of the things recently that, I mean, I enjoy like wine and drinking, but alcohol is not liking me, right? And so I just stopped drinking, and not that I won't ever drink. It's not anything more than like right now for this time of my life, it's not for me, only because I want to feel my best. I want to
Yeah.
sleep well. I don't, and feeling my best means, I'm going to set that aside for an indefinite period of time, and realizing that I just have the choice of like, I don't have to drink. Also, but being around, in a workshop environment, in a learning environment, in a social environment down here in Costa Rica, there's a lot of pressure to drink. Like there's a lot of peer pressure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, do you want to drink? 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 And I'm like, I would love a sparkling water. And they're like, oh, you don't drink? And I'm like, not right now, but thank you.
I'm doing this. I'm same thing right now. I'm going through the same thing where where I just stopped drinking. I just don't have an urge for it. I literally have a cabinet, thousands of dollars worth of bourbon. Like I collected bourbon,
bourbon,
of it.
delicious, right?
Delicious stuff. I
Love
mean, just every brand, everything you can think of, and it's just sitting in a closet, and it's just like no urge for it.
Yeah. These are the main pain points there's some that are beyond this that are true as well, which is often there's some sort of spiritual enlightenment that happens during midlife. Sometimes people return to a religion that they grew up in, or they choose a new flavor of that, or they seek their own path. But by and large, somebody will choose something that is bigger than themselves, right? Not even necessarily a belief, but this is a big time to get into spiritual practices. When you start going down the rabbit hole of self-improvement, it inevitably leads to, okay, there's something bigger here. Like there's something else. There's something. There's a questioning of the universe. And I think that part of that is also just thinking that, oh, by the way, I'm at midlife. There's this midlife means I'm in the middle, right? There are probably fewer days ahead than behind. If you and I do everything well, even with advancements in medicine, if we're really lucky, we have about 10, maybe 15,000 days of health left.
Wow.
That's it. That's all you get.
Days.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10, 15, maybe. And you want to keep those as healthy as possible, right?
I just thought of a great product for you.
Tell me, man, because I'm really thinking about this.
This is going to be great. What you do is you create a website that basically people go fill in almost like what you would do for life insurance. And it's going to calculate what your life expectancy would be based on how your lifestyle is. And then it will mail them. They order a thing that basically says, this is how many days are left in your life, and that they can put on their wall. And just like as a wake up call is like, live every day as right now. Just throwing it out there.
Love it.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're overweight, 44, and you're a smoker, you know that this person's going to have 10 more years of life, or 12 more years, or 15, or whatever that may be. Or I don't know what it is, but if
the calculation is 0, what should I send them? Should I send them like Bruce?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be such a wake up call to somebody to see that there's there's 15,000 dots on this poster that I have left. Gosh, that's good. I like that one.
This is what you got left.
Yeah, that's good.
Another one gone.
Yeah, and
that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah, so you think that's a good product? I like that. Yeah. This is the awareness. Yeah, it's
just like to live for today. And I mean, I'm an unapologetic psychonaut, and like there's something that you realize with psilocybins in the ayahuascas and the DMTs of the world. There's actually a great book that just came out. I just downloaded it on Audible. It's actually a history book, and it tells the story of the sacrament at church. That basically he's been able to find enough evidence to kind of put enough pieces together. It may be stretching, I don't know. He is a scholar. The guy is a scholar. He's never done psilocybin, never done any psychoactive things, but he basically was like he traced it back all the way to the Greek roots. I'm talking like Plato, and I can't remember the name of the temple that was in the Greek. I think it was called the, it began with an E, but they would basically send people there, and it was like the best kept secret to meet God, right? So, wow. And basically what's happening when you're doing DMT, which is the main psychoactive element in psilocybin, you're experiencing death. So if you look at, there's some Greek texts and things, and he actually breaks out. And so he actually, the author is Brian Mazuki, and the book is called The Immortality Key. Fascinating. There's a 13-minute video where he breaks it down, traces it back to the Greek, and basically that what it was the best kept secret in ancient Greece, because basically once you've experienced it, you're really aren't supposed to talk about it unless you can get someone that wants to go and experience it themselves. Because, and the reason is, and it's much in the same reasons that I don't like when I host DMT journeys for people, I don't explain to them what the journey is supposed to be, and I tell them not to watch videos because I don't want them to affect their journey. Right. Because it's the God drug, or the death drug is what they call it. So you're experiencing death. And he's been able to find evidence of like chalices that were used in churches where they did chemical composants, and they found traces of DMT, psilocybin, and other things, where basically when Jesus Christ is like, drink my blood, it's like he's literally introducing them to me, basically to be one with God in that experience. So great book. And the guy is so cool. So his major and his doctoral is in language, Sanskrit, Hebrew, and Aramaic. So so the problem with the Bible is that it's been translated incorrectly, or just translated in a way to fit the needs of the church. Right. So when you get somebody that really studies the language and really breaks it down, there's like this, there's all these sayings in it, or all these readings that he finds that are, if they're interpreted one way, but the church, that's because the way the church has interpreted it into English. But when you interpret it for the actual meaning of the word, it totally means something different. And it's called The Immortality Key. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's written by Brian Mazuki or something like that. There's also,
maybe we could put a link down in
absolutely. I'll tell Abby to I'll have her look it up. And he did an actual interview with Joe Rogan probably like 2 months ago or 3 months ago. And it was it's fascinating, and it's so funny. I was at Burning Man 2016. I had just done an acid trip that lasted like 10 hours or something like that. So I go by Homeless Moses. That's my plant name out there. And the reason is I camp with about 25 Israelis, and I'm a Christian Jordanian. So they call me Homeless Moses. So I run around the desert with a bunch of Israelis. So they call me Homeless Moses. That's how I got my name, Homeless Moses. So so I lead a bunch of Israelis around the desert every year at Burning Man. And so one day we go, it's the night they burn the man. And this is the major events. This is the apex of it all. This is where it happens. Right. And I'm still coming down on my trip, and I'm dressed in my Moses gear because I got my name because I wear this big like thing that like the Arabs wear out in the desert and stuff. And so we're walking, we get out there, and it's a sandstorm is going on, and they're like, are they going to cancel the burn? All this stuff's going on. So we sit down, and somehow, because there's a sandstorm hit, everybody got lost. It was a complete whiteout that night. Wow. Everybody kind of got lost, and they couldn't figure it out. So there was about a 45-minute delay, but somehow we ended up like right in front of the man, like right in front of me. There was nothing but the fence and the fire dancers in front of me. So we're sitting there, and this was my second year with my Israeli friends, or second year with my Israeli friends. Actually, it's 2017, not 16. It was my second year with my Israeli friends. And I'm sitting there and like looking around at all these people. And I like, for some reason, stand up, and I'm like, this is the beginning of a new religion. This is it, people. Moses was running around the desert getting fucked up and just meeting God in a whole other way that the Bible's not telling you. And my brother's like jerking my jacket, and he's like, get out, you look like an idiot. I was like, I don't know, Burning Man. But in the reality of it, I mean, most of the people at Burning Man are going through midlife anyway. But you kind of realize that when you reach out it's my own experiences. Like I'm getting to become more spiritual. I went from atheist to agnostic to there's something there, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
there's like, I don't know what it is. And ironically, my neighbor for the farm that I bought, she's 90 years old. She is a clinical psychologist. So she's been doing this for 50 years, right? And so so her specialty, and there's only a few people that do this around the country, is inducing trance with imagery. And from
Mm.
there, they're able to help people drum up trauma to discuss it, much in the same way that DMT or psilocybin
Yeah.
can help you bring up, and ayahuasca can bring up trauma. I mean, so I went to go meet this lady. I called her. I was like, "Hey, my name's Elias. I just want to introduce myself because I hike her property all the time, and I know she's not going to come out there, but I just want to meet her." I go in there thinking I'm going to hang out with her 5 minutes, 2.5 hours. I'm sitting with her.
Wow.
Fascinating story. I mean, she's
Yeah.
just one of the most fascinating people. She lives on 150 acres out like on the river in Kentucky, um, in one of the coolest houses I've ever been in. I'm a real estate guy. One of the coolest houses I've ever been in. I mean, I was like, Mary, you do not sell this house to anyone but me. Was like, this is my house. Like you, so, but you know, my, and what she basically, and I know it's a long drawn out story, but by the end of the conversation, we were talking about spirituality, and things. And she was like, basically that God is within us. The conversation in our mind is God talking to us. And,
Mm.
you know, like God doesn't express any judgment. That's us expressing our own judgment. You know, so like this conversation with, and then we've mentioned the book Conversation with God, which is one I
Hmm.
was reading a couple of months ago when we first started on this. But it was kind of the same thing. Is like all the things that we make up about God are the shit that we make up about ourselves. It's a mirror of
Yeah.
spirituality. And then I think for me at hitting midlife and realizing this conversation is actually with God and not just myself, because I talk to myself a lot,
Yeah.
like just hours of conversation. I mean,
Right.
I hiked 3 hours yesterday, and the whole time I'm talking to myself. But am I talking to myself? Am I? Like, I don't know. Like, and so like I even these are like philosophical questions that are going through my mind while I'm hiking. That's even more than the beautiful environment that's around me. So I actually remember thinking just on one of my hikes a few days ago, I was like, why am I not just like absorbing this here? Why am I having this conversation? And then I'm kind of like, I mean, this is God's creation. And I feel like I'm talking to these trees. I know this sounds
Mm.
crazy. I feel like
No,
I'm
it doesn't.
talking to these
Yeah.
trees and they're talking to me. And it's this conversation that's happening. And this realization of this, like, I was like, would I have thought this at 35? Would I have thought this at 25? Definitely not at 25. The only thing I think
No.
about 25 was like sex and money. Like that
Hmm.
was the only thing I would think
Right.
about then, you know. And it's like, and now at this age to like have these conversations with myself that are answering questions and coming up with things and like really creating the man that I am now, you know. And I don't know, it's been I totally feel what you're talking about in that sense of spirituality and self-help is this like it feels like I don't know where the connection comes from, where the self-help and spirituality is, but it's just almost like this wholeness, I feel like, right? Like there's the physical body and then connecting it to the spiritual part of your body or of your spiritual self.
There is a clear, it's a clear gateway in that if you look at the thought leaders in self-help, whether it's the Tony Robbins or the Tim Ferrisses or the Dan Harrises of the world, they all started with this very practical message, like it's a 4-hour work week or it's a 4-hour body, or it's, like this is, unleash the power within, or this is, this is how to meditate. And every single one of them has evolved into has had spiritual messages. It's like now they are deep into talking with spiritual leaders, right? Like they'll bring on the Eckhart Tolles of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll talk to leading figures in religion, and they'll bring on a Dalai Lama or a Pope or somebody who's like, this is their world, man,
Yeah.
and So it's clear that whatever, even my staunchest staunchest friends that talk about how like they're very anti-religious. I'm like, yeah, but they also deep dive into worlds of stoicism, which has a tremendous sense of wonder and awe
Yeah.
of the unknown, right? And that is like, you don't have to take it to anything organized. You don't have to take it into any kind of dogma. You don't have to take it into anything. If you simply have a beautiful appreciation for what we don't know, there you are. That is tickling the spiritual light fantastic within us.
Yeah. It's so
And
funny
it doesn't have to be anything more than that.
I just saw a YouTube channel that I follow. I'll try to catch it once a month if they've got some good stuff on there, because there's they introduced me to a Buddhist I don't know, what do they call those guys? Monk, leader, or
monks.
Yeah. A Buddhist monk that is like a spiritual leader. And so I started following them, and it's called Sense Making. Rebel Wisdom is so if you Google Rebel Wisdom on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of these videos. And it's so funny that so I've gone away from organized religion, and the number one growing religion right now is unaffiliated, right?
Yeah.
So
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is huge. Like it's the number one. I actually posted something on my Facebook, because politics and religion kind of,
oh my God,
they're becoming one of the same. So
right.
like people have left religions and now they're hardcore to politics. Or an example that you and I have experienced with our One Heart group is like vaccines. Like anti-vaxxers has become a religion. So it's in Black Lives Matter, it's a religion. Wokeism is a religion. Cancel culture is a religion. So basically, when you have what we're experiencing as humans, and I'm actually just starting the book Sapiens, which I'm really excited to read, which is about the history of human civilizations. And I've had excerpts of it I've read, and some other articles that I've read and videos that I've seen. But people are like falling back into things that they don't count as religion. Burning Man, that's a religion.
Yeah,
that
very much so. Yeah,
the One Heart experience is becoming religious. Even the spiritual journeys that people are going through, religion. Like like these dogmatic views that come around. Trumpism, religion. MAGAism is religion. Like it's all the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. Like if you don't willing to accept facts, period, then that's it, that you've basically become a religious person to whatever that may be. Right. Like you can't ignore the facts just because that's your belief. I mean, you can do it as far on the conservative side with the anti-vaxxers, and on the left side with the Black Lives Matter. You can't argue with either one of those people because they're like, this is the way it is and that's how it is. Right. And it's like, no, it ain't. Right. There's facts.
Yeah.
And nobody wants the truth anymore. And so where do you see, as far as for us in the midlife to not get wrapped up in this thing? Because who are you think about the people that went crazy about Trump? They tend to be the baby boomers and the people I mean, you're in Generation X. So the baby boomers kind of fell into the QAnon thing. There's a special on HBO about QAnon. That shit is fucking hilarious.
For real.
And when you find out who the people, they've got a pretty strong assessment on who QAnon is, which is this white nationalist dude that lives in Japan with his son that run 8chan, basically, which is and it's so good. I'm there. I think it's a 6-part series. They just released the 4th part yesterday. You just watch it and it's like, oh my God, these people literally helped facilitate the first non-peaceful transfer of power since 1776 in the United States. And it's this nerd and his dad in Japan that did it. And that's what's so hilarious about the whole thing. And so what do we do? What do we do to not fall into the trap of dogmatic views that could affect us? And even in the sense of spirituality, that could be almost I catch myself trying to, even with the Burning Man thing, it's I am I am a burner through and through, and it's like a part of my life, and it's a culture, and I've accepted it for what it is. I'm not trying to act like it's just an event, right?
Right, right, right.
But that's my community. Like, how are we going to find
Yeah.
community, like, moving forward? What do you suggest? What do you think?
I have this great question because I'm experiencing this right now. This event, this workshop on relationships, was put together by a group, and I get down here, and it's very social. I'm meeting amazing people, really quite accomplished in their fields, or just really neat human beings. And then I start picking up some dog whistle things, like what, just, and they're casually dropped in. And as I'm experiencing the group more and more, I realize that I think very, very differently than the large percentage of people at this event, right? I am with a lot of Texans. I'm with a lot of people that clearly did not vote as I do not think as I do not, and I'm keeping my mouth shut, right? And catching myself because I immediately start judging them. It's like, oh, it's like, I can't believe it. It's like, I cannot believe what's coming, because it'll just be like a turd dropped out, and you're like, whoa, oh my God, right? Out of nowhere, like something would come up. It's like, I'm protesting Starbucks. It's like I threw away all my Nikes and I'm protesting Starbucks, and I didn't even know what that was about. I had to go and look that shit up. I'm like, what? Why are you doing that? It's like, why are you throwing away your Nikes? And what I realized is that I am meeting fabulous human beings, right? And I can cherish them and love them up and appreciate them for who they are. And if I'm listening for labels, like, the label of conservatism or Trumpism, or if listening for a label of I will immediately drop into, racist piece of shit, right? An intolerant, controlling, freedom hating, anti-democratic, crazy person. And that is not the case. We are beautifully complex human beings, right? And I was checking myself on my own labels and my own beliefs and my own things. And I know that the more that we can avoid the labels, avoid the stereotypes, and really question people as to what they believe, I found that we believe and we experience things far closer than we know, right? And I believe sort of the mechanism of weird news and the mechanism of social media, and actually just being lumped into our own tribes and getting our own echo chambers, compounds that. It's like, well, I'm right and you're wrong. And I was catching myself on that. And I certainly would get that if I stood up and said, hey, I do not think how you do. I would certainly get labeled with, just a another libtard, moron. So what I have found is, don't engage people on their beliefs, or even try and change their views, right? But you can start asking questions where they start like cocking their heads a little bit, like happened to me, right? And it's like, well, this is an amazing human being, and they just, essentially talked about how lazy and awful their staff is, and how, just minimum wage or whatever, things that I know and believe in, right? Things that are backed by science, or backed by economics, or backed by, and but listening and just asking some questions as to why they believe those things, right? And it's like, where does that come from? Like, what's going on with you? Case in point, I had had several days with an amazing person, and out of the blue, he says, they shouldn't be teaching, my kids any kind of culture in schools. Like that's for the home. I teach culture in the home, and I'm just sitting there nodding and not, in my head I'm going, what? But I'm keeping it all inside. And in the same conversation, he started talking about creating this that the best growth and the most sustainability and the best businesses that he's ever created were all about creating really positive and good culture. And I'm like, huh. And I was like, well, do you teach that culture? He goes, yes, I do. And I'm like, okay, got it. And I didn't go so far as to call out the incongruence with it, because I don't want somebody to feel stupid, right? Even though it's okay to teach in one area but not in another. And isn't it okay to give people exposure to cultures from different places? I know that my world opened up when I started doing international travel and realizing that the world doesn't think like me at all, right? Like, I'm in this privileged white dude bubble, right? And as soon as I get into anything other environment, I realize that I'm in that bubble, and I have no experience as somebody who's female or Black or BIPOC, or I have no experience in those worlds. Yet what I believe in is humanity and love and gratitude, and those things are more important than having these staunch beliefs. And so if I take my way of being, which is about love and gratitude and seeing people for who they are, and apply that to people that I believe might be destroying the world, and say, no, they're not actually trying to destroy the world. That is, there are sociopaths out there, but those aren't these people. It's listening for understanding, and meeting them with that love and gratitude and showing up as to who you are. And I think that the rhetoric and the arguments and trying to change people's minds with facts, we are in a post-truth world. That's the reality, right?
Yeah.
You can change audio and video, and you can change facts, and you can game, the internet and all the rest of it, where truth is becoming less and less valuable, and it's harder and harder to get. So if you're meeting people with love, kindness, and as an example, right, just like an adult would with a child.
Mm-hmm.
If you're meeting as an example, then you bleed out the boogeyman of Black Lives Matter, which came up this week, or you bleed out the boogeyman of liberals, or the boogeyman of Biden being the worst thing ever. It's like, well, okay, let's talk about the facts, or the beliefs, or the individual things, and remove the labels. So catch yourself the next time you start thinking in labels. It's like, this is what all of these people believe, or this is who I am, or this is the label. It's really opened up my mind of really learning about what we do commonly share, which is humanity. And it's like, if we can start getting back to the human, I think we can go a long way to rallying around the things that actually do matter. And it's not calling each other fucking names. And I realized I was doing that in my head. I was calling people's names in my head.
Yeah, I posted a meme. I never post anything political on my Facebook, but this was kind of like apolitical, and it was something along the lines that was like, when I'm roasting a Democrat and a Republican chimes in, and it's Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, and it's like, and it just says, "Did I ask you a fucking question or a goddamn thing?" or something like that.
Did I ask you to come into this motherfucker?
Yeah, it's like, and that's actually kind of like what I've become, because I actually do catch myself, like, so it's funny. So when I'm with my Republican friends, I blast Republicans, right? When I'm with my Democratic friends, I blast Democrats. And then in between both of those, I'm like, here's the good out of both, right? And I'm just like, Biden's corrupt. His son uses his name to make money. There's no doubt about that. Trump's son just didn't give a shit. He was out and about it. The only difference between the
raking in
corruption
as much money as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only difference between the corruption between Biden and Trump is that Trump just didn't give a shit. He just whip it out, when in doubt kind of thing. He didn't care about showing the corruption. And Biden's just like backdoor corruption. It's and when you sit there and talk about like corruption, monopolies, and then even when you talk about things like when I talk about my friends who are a little bit more on the left about Black Lives Matter, I'm like, yeah, here's the real facts about it is that it's just like bringing out just like, here's the truths, here's the common things that we can agree on, here are the thing in it. And that's what I try to do is like, I bring out the things that we can bring on. I come from a blue collar background. So like my views are very much the old Democratic, like union, like that.
Yeah.
That's those are my views. But what I also recognize is that there are no parties that represent blue collar workers. So, and that's the conversation that I have with both Republicans and my Democratic friends is like,
totally.
So like right now, money is speech, right? Money is speech, and corporations are humans, right? How can we can agree that shouldn't be allowed? Right.
Yeah.
Corporations shouldn't be humans. Like the family, I can't remember their name, that did with the whole opioid epidemic, right? They've got billions of dollars stashed in Swiss bank accounts that we'll never be able to touch. And right now we have literally a pandemic with this issue, with basically poor white people. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like we can agree on these things, and those are the things that I try to have conversations with people like is like I will bring them to the center on every time I try to talk to them, at least try to bring them to the center. I had a good friend of mine, she's younger, she's like she's a tenant, she used to date a friend of mine, she actually is now a tenant upstairs. I think she's like 27 now, maybe 28. Used to be a far leftist, right? And then she started dating a conservative dude and became a conservative. And I'm talking, she went from one end of the spectrum to the other very quickly. And I literally, I was like, and I would have conversations with her and be like trying to bring her towards the center. Like, look, that's not a good way to look at this. This is how you look at it. And I keep trying to tell her, it's like the conversation's in the middle. The conversation isn't on the far right. The conversation isn't on the far left. It's in the middle. Like you got to just see what's in the middle and talk about that, because the views on the far right and the views on the far left are fucking bullshit. Both of them are. You know what I mean? And they may have good points. They're little small things in there, but and it's almost, you can whittle that down to any kind of disagreements that you may have, even on an individual level with relationship or your personal friends, is like, what are the things that you have in common with? And even when I fight with my girlfriend, it's like, all right, what are the things I love about her that get me to want to continue this relationship, right? And that brings me back to center, right? Like bring the things that you like, that you can do it to politics, religion, or whatever that may be.
I believe that you also have to guard against sort of the mediocrity of the center, and really stand for things that are right.
Yes.
Like when somebody's beliefs goes and kills other people, and they're okay with that. I'm not, right? I'm not okay with systemic racism, right? And that there are ways that we can fix this, so that, because I believe when the most disadvantaged are free, then we're all free, right? That a multimillionaire or billionaire or corporation shouldn't have more democracy or more freedom than me.
Yes, absolutely.
And way more freedom than somebody who is poor or disadvantaged. Those are folks, it's like, you want to experience the least amount of freedom in the United States, be poor and be brown or black, right? That is an entirely different world that I don't get. And be a woman. Oh, and good Lord, add sexual sexuality in there too. It's like you're in a tough space, my friend. Like, how can we elevate those people so that they at least experience the same amount of freedom as a billionaire? I believe that that's important.
Well, and it's how do you do that when like money is voice, right? It's so crazy. I tell people this all the time is like, People, especially the people that believed in some kind of cabal that's running everything. Yeah, there probably is there's no group of people running everything. It's too integrated, too big, too whatever, right?
Right.
But we're experiencing Big Brother right now.
Totally.
I don't know if you've been watching what Amazon's been doing lately, but Amazon is literally trolling senators, like blasting Bernie Sanders about $15 minimum wage. And the only reason that Amazon's, even for anyone that doesn't remember this, the only reason Amazon got shamed into doing $15 minimum wage when Warren and Sanders were creating a bill called the Bezos bill. I can't remember what it stands for, but they used his name as an acronym for it. And so he went to $15 minimum wage before that law passed. They are so the number one lobbyist group in Washington, D.C., Amazon. They spend more money on Democrats and Republicans than anyone. Now they're so big and so powerful. Like, you explain this stuff, what's going on with Amazon. And right now conservatives are pissed off at Amazon for shutting off Parler. So like, now is a great opportunity for everybody to come together on one thing that we can all agree on. And let's just say, fuck Amazon. Like,
right.
And they're doing union busting in Alabama right now, because there's a big vote going on right now because I can't remember the name of the town in Alabama, but the voting ended on Sunday. I don't know if it passed or not. I haven't looked at the news today. But when people don't realize, like we can find a common thing that can better everyone. So the one thing I don't sit in the middle on is the environment, right? And that's where I'm kind of like, that doesn't make sense. Like,
right.
This is everybody's. Like, Mother Earth is everyone's.
It's everyone's Earth. Yeah,
it's everyone's Earth. You don't get to be a conservative on that thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of people don't even realize that the reason that conservatives are anti-climate or climate change deniers, there's two reasons. One, the Democratic Party is basically owned by Wall Street and tech executives, and techs are, everybody throws money at everybody. The Republicans are owned by gas and oil. So, and who had the loudest voice about climate change? Al Gore. And so that was an easy target for them to be like, he represents the Democrats. Climate is about the Democrats and all this stuff. And it's like, instead of us being like, maybe it's about the earth,
right.
Maybe it's about like having something to give our great grandkids,
right?
Maybe it's about clean water, clean air.
It's like, let's stop pouring paint in the ocean. It's a good idea.
We don't have to own the libs on that one. Like,
don't need to own the libs. Exactly. Yeah.
Own us on everything else. Abortion, cool. Let's argue that. Fine. Whatever. You know what I mean? Freedom of religion that you think is happening. Guns, okay, cool. Whatever. But the climate is like, we all need that, right? And that's where that's where I kind of draw the line. And then again, like, when you really talk about that subject with people, like, trying to come to the center about that, when you really get to the root of it, people agree. They all agree. It's not a disagreement. And
that's what's so cool about being in this environment is and being surrounded by people who just don't think like I do, is that we agree on so much more than we disagree with. It's the small things of how we might look at issues that get amplified, like, dramatically. And that's like, no, man, it's like, we can talk a lot more about what we agree on and how we might approach something. I have hope that it's going to get better, yet I don't know how, other than mixing the tribes up and getting people together and maybe a little less social media, a little less news, and a little bit more loving up. We might have some hope there.
We're on that path right now. I'm an immigrant, and I love this country. Like, I am the most, like, I feel like I'm pretty patriotic. I mean, this house doesn't have a flag in front of it, but my last house did. The house before that did. I just haven't put out the effort to put up a flag. And like, this country, we make it, dude. We anytime there's a challenge, anytime that this shit pops off, anytime we go through this, like, we've been through this in the early 1900s. Like, this was something we've already done this before. Okay, granted, we didn't have the social unrest and and a pandemic at the same time, but it did come later on. And I'm optimistic that we pull through it. If it doesn't, I'm going to Costa Rica. Fuck it. They don't have a standing army and they like gringos, and I'm learning Spanish.
And they love the environment here. Their entire culture, their entire political system, everything is built on ensuring that this here is for future generations, and it's geared around the environment. Yeah, you know, it's like they see this as sacred, and it shows. It's amazing.
I love it. I love it, man. We're at an hour, dude.
Woo! Look at us.
I'm glad you're enjoying yourself out there. Thanks everybody for joining us. Please subscribe and like our videos. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we will catch you guys next week.